must give due praise and acknowledge your greatness this day. Give us then to seek to do your glory and to discharge our duties this day with diligence. And we pray that you would give us grace and wisdom to do things according to your will, and that is in the best interests of the communities that we serve. We give thanks for the privilege that you have given to us to serve in this capacity. We pray that we would give thanks to you for that, and that we would remember that it is you that we serve, and that we would seek to do everything to your glory. We pray for our communities, the communities that we serve. We pray that you would bless them, that you would watch over them, bless our young people. We pray that you would keep them in this day. We pray that you would bless those who look after them and in education throughout our schools. We give thanks for the progress that has been made to reopen our schools. Pray for your blessing upon teachers and staff and pupils and all involved in the hard work of delivering education in these times. We pray for those who work in our care services and the health service, who reach out to those who are vulnerable and fragile in our communities. We pray your blessing upon them as well. We give thanks for all that has been done in the year that has passed. We give thanks for the resilience and the courage of our community in response to this pandemic. And we pray for all the families who have been affected, families who have suffered bereavement and who have gone through many trials, that you, God, would bless those experiences to them for their good. We pray then that you would bless us as an authority as we watch over and seek to govern in the best interests of our community, and seek to do as much as we can with the resources we have. That you would then bless our deliberations this day and give us to look to the author and finisher of our faith, the Lord Jesus Christ. Bless us now, we pray, and bless the chair as he presides over this meeting, and all who will contribute to the meeting this day. Go before us now and pardon our sin for Christ's sake. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Crichton. These are reminders about the conduct of the meeting. Throughout the meeting, I'll ask relevant officers to present the reports, and if any member or officer is going to contribute, can you do so by using the raise your hand function. When you're contributing, if you put on your mic and your camera, and then when you've concluded, if you switch off your mic and camera once again. Again, at each recommendation, if there's a no show of raised hands, then that's an indication of the committee's approval. And of course, in regard of the declarations of interest, you're reminded of the protocol that you have to leave the virtual meeting by ending the call, which will be confirmed by the moderator to me, and then following consideration of the item, you'll be invited back into the meeting by the moderator. A reminder that the meeting has been live streamed and that's been recorded. And the recording will be made available on the Council's website following the meeting. And just one note in terms of one item in private, item 13, it's recommended that under the terms of section 50A4 of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973, the public, including the press, be excluded from the meeting during consideration of item 13 on the grounds that exempt information as defined in part 1 of Schedule 7A, the Act will be disclosed. That said, moving on, minutes of the meeting. We've got minutes of the meeting of 3rd February 21, 23rd February 21 and 23rd February 21, the second meeting for the budget, for approval as to accuracy. Happy to approve. Councillor Paul Finnegan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just wanted to make a note of the amendment. The minutes, the 2 minutes of the 23rd of February. For the
Yes.
for attendance, they have Councillor Finlay Cunningham and Councillor Grant Fulton at present, so that's clearly not correct. So I just wanted to correct the Finlay Cunningham.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Paul. We'll amend accordingly. Otherwise, happy to approve as to accuracy. Thank you very much. Item 2, declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest they have in any items of the agenda. They can do it now or when they come to the item concerned. Do we have any declarations of interest? None. Okay, thank you very much. And then item number 3 is the minute of the meeting of Human Resource Committee of 25th March 2021, and that's for noting. Councillor Charlie Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions in regards to the minute here, Chair. One, I want to ask, Chair, do we not have a policy of no redundancies?
Do you want to take all your points, and then I'll get the officers to deal with it?
Okay, thank you, Chair. The second one, is there to be provision for staff and members for lunchtime and snacks?
Okay, and did you have another one?
Yes, I did, Chair. Where will the members area be in the new plans? Because if we're closing the kind of members area as such, where will we have for hospitality and civic events within the area for eating as such? Because I don't think it's a good idea, Chair, for members to be going into the staff area as such. I don't think the staff would be very happy with that, looking at plates and having their own soup and sandwiches, etc. So just clarification, and it's from item 11 of this minute.
Okay, that's 3 questions there. Can I ask whoever's got their mic on? I don't have a few Paul Finnegan. Somebody's got their mic on and there's quite a lot of background noise. But we did manage to hear Councillor Nicholson. Mr. Bell?
Thank you, Chair. On the first 2 points, we do have a policy of no compulsory redundancies as an instrument of budget control. So redundancies and the 2 redundancies, without going into personal details which are referred to there, are within the terms of that policy. And yes, there will be a service. There will be a lunch service for members and staff in council offices in Stornoway. As to the area, probably I think Mr. Callum Mackenzie, Head of Property and Infrastructure, would be best to answer that in detail. But my recollection is there is a space, of course, for members dining, and we will make provision for civic entertaining. All of that, of course, depends on the numbers who are being entertained. There are changes to the current members' dining area, which I think we intend to divide, but we will make provision for civic entertainment, as always, either in council offices or out with, for example, in the town hall.
Okay,
thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask maybe Colin, do you want to come in just now, Colin Mackenzie, or do you want to maybe send round a summary of what the plans are, 2 members? Colin?
Thank you, Chair. I think we're at the very early stages now of detailing what the offices may look like, and these requirements will be taken into the overall plans. There's a survey to be conducted imminently on services and employees and how they can actually work flexibly. So that will have a bearing as well on the use of space within the council buildings and other office buildings as well. So, excuse me. So I think what I'm trying to summarise is that we're at the very early stages, and the points that Councillor Nicholson has brought up will be borne in mind as we develop these plans.
Okay, thank you for that. John Orman McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just following on a wee bit from what Charlie was saying there. And it's the same item number 11. The training kitchen. Can someone sort of speak a wee bit more about this training kitchen, what's involved? I'm seeing the report, but it's very vague what's on the report. It's new to us. First I came across this just now when I read it in the HR minutes. I just wondered, is this going to have any effect in our college? What's all this training? I'm not sure where it's going. Can someone please talk a wee bit about it? Thanks.
Do we have anybody at the meeting that can do that, or can we come back to members later?
We can certainly come back to members later. If Catherine McKinnon is on the call, she would certainly be able to advise.
No. Okay, that's fair enough, Councillor MacLeod. We will come back to you, and I'll ensure that officers come back to you and give you details as to what's intended in respect of the training kitchen and if there are any implications for the college or anything like that.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Councillor Nicholson, you still have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up the point from Mr. Mackenzie, the importance of a councillor's area. We've got the members' dining room being taken away from us, Chair. We've got the little councillor's office down at the Chief Executive's been taken away. There needs to be a room or an area where members can access, meet each other, and also the aspect of members coming up from Euston, Barra and Harris, a space where they can go in and use a computer and have space to engage with their residents while they're up here at meetings. I know the issue will come in, Chair, about COVID and that, but there must be a space available for members, in my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. I agree with you. I think that's part of the plan. As far as I understand it, there was going to be improved access points for IT and a space for members, as you're describing. But just ask Mr. Bird to confirm.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as members will recall, we have discussed that previously as part of the plans for the members area, and recognising particularly the wish for a workspace for members. That's very much part of the plan, so that members can gather in small numbers, work at tables, work on PCs or devices, also gather around smaller tables for coffee. We've also created Committee Room 4, as you know, for group meetings during Committee Week and Council Week once we're all back together. So that's all part of the same plan. And Mr. Mackenzie and I will give further details of that as soon as we can.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor MacLean.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but should all this not be done in a strategy post-COVID, so that we see that what is happening, how many are going to be working from offices, etc. There's an awful lot in this, and should this not be wrapped up in a plan and discussed with councillors before this happens? I'm just putting that, because this, as Sean Norman says, this is the first time I've read about this change. It happened obviously at HR.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Clark.
Chair, if I can help, yes, I mean, there has been a lot of discussion with members in the pre-COVID period on the facilities that they need. And the reason where Mr. Mackenzie and I are thinking about these matters is, of course, exactly on that, Councillor MacLeod, it's on account of COVID. How will we work in future? What will the office be like? There's a lot of material on that across the public sector, across local authorities, but it is all part of the one plan. But on the kitchen particularly, I mean, the kitchen has had financial issues. It's struggled to break even. It's not, eating patterns have changed. We are very keen to keep a civic catering facility for the benefit of both members and employees, because it brings people together. It's a good thing. It's something we should be able to do. How do we do that in a way that's financially viable, but also meets other corporate policies, such as the need to support apprenticeships, training, and that's the way it's gone. The Corps anticipated this a couple of years ago when we appointed the then catering manager to a new post, specifically with training in mind, and this is the fulfilment of that policy.
Okay. And members will be kept posted along the way.
Absolutely, it's your facilities.
Yeah. Okay. Fine, thank you for that. So we've got item 3 for noting. Happy to note with that additional information. Okay, thank you for that. Item number 4 is the minute of the meeting of the OHCPP of 11th November, and that's for noting. Our members are happy to note that. Yes, thank you. Moving on to item 5, performance management. These reports that provide an overview of the business plan and related performance issues at the end of the third quarter 2020-21. Mr. Baird, Norman MacDonald and Ian McKinnon will highlight key points and answer any questions on their respective remits. Over to you, Mr. Baird. Do you wish to?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very, very brief because a lot of the material, as you would expect, is on this agenda. And yes. All I'll bring to your attention is that this is about the department. This is not about the whole council. Chief Executive's Department business plan has 35 actions and 32 key performance indicators, KPIs. 31 out of the 35 actions are on track, and it's all listed at 6.2. So the 4 that are not, I don't think really should be causing you any concerns, but I'm happy to take questions on that either now or later. On the KPIs, which are corporate, 8 are on track, 1 is showing amber, 2 are off track, and 21 of them have annual reporting, and that's all set out in the report. Turning to the key policy areas, items 10.1 to 10.6 are on the agenda. In any case, elsewhere, 10.7 is for information. 10.11, the review of local governance, I'll speak about under the community empowerment item, and you all know we have an election next month, so that's just there for information. So happy to take questions, Chair.
Any questions from Mr. Baird? As he says, most of the items are already on our agenda and we'll discuss in detail later. We've also got some information here in front of you in terms of performance management around finance, accountancy and exchequer services and investment delivery. I don't know if Norman MacDonald wants to add anything to that or is just want to take questions. Has anybody got any questions around accountancy? And Norman, did you want to add anything?
No, I've got nothing to add.
Yeah.
But I'll take any questions.
Okay. Got Councillor Gordon Murray.
Good morning, Chair. I'm basically, are you taking 5B and 5C together?
Yeah, if you've got a question on.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Firstly, on the finance, IT and audit, it's just to place my thanks to IT for all the work they have been doing over the difficult and challenging period. I recognise that they've had a lot of extra pressure in terms of the differing working environment, and wish to convey the group's thanks, and hopefully can you record our thanks to them and recognise their efforts. It's been quite a difficult time for them. On 5C, just with regards to the vacating the town hall, I'm not sure if Mr. MacDonald will have any details, but I'm just a wee bit concerned about the future of the face-to-face facility for the exchequer services that were located in the town hall. Where are they going to be? Has there been any thoughts on that, or they should have been? Just could you give me an update on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There isn't a final decision yet as to where the customer services office will be located, but the plan is to continue with some face-to-face. We haven't come up with a final model of how that's going to work yet, but there will definitely be some face-to-face contact centre for customers.
Yeah, thank you for that, Norman. So it's a work in progress and we'll get updated as it evolves, but the assurance that there will be face-to-face is really quite important. And thank you, Mr. Murray, for your comments on being supportive of staff, and I think we should all be supportive of them and treat them with respect and dignity as we work together in very difficult times. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member of your committee, and it's something about the Dropbox IT that I was going to mention, to see if the Dropbox could be retained for a year on the basis of offsetting the savings made on expenses not incurred due to COVID. Because I find, from my own point of view, on a purely selfish basis the Dropbox to be a very useful system in that all of the information is there from the constitutional documents and how the Comhairle works to training and seminars and everything that has to be put to us. And I think it would be certainly helpful for members to be kept informed of that till the end of Comhairle. And if 15,000 is what is being saved, that we could offset that from the other budget, since this is the budgetary committee, so that we who are in this term have access to all that's been considered over the piece, and that it's all there rather than having to start learning. I'm sure I'm not alone, or perhaps I am, as being the least tech competent in the Comhairle, but certainly I find Dropbox a very useful tool, and it's something that I would recommend that we would retain. Okay. Your thoughts would be much valued. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. McMillan. I mean, I like yourself, I'm not technically adept, and I'm quite comfortable with Dropbox, but I understand that the solution that's ahead of us is a perfectly simple system, and also that we've set staff, a task to introduce budget savings, and all they've done is deliver on what we've asked them. I certainly wasn't of the mind that you were, that suddenly we were going to hide everything or we're going to lose records. I don't think that's got anything to do with it whatsoever. It's a bit of a red herring. But can I ask Carl Mackenzie to come in? I don't know. Carl, do you want to come in just to talk around that one?
Yes, Chair. Well, the reassurances here, as you've said, we are going to have quite a simple system. SharePoint will be rolled out. It's easy to use and training will be given for it. The Dropbox will still be available for archive records for the period. It's just that we won't be adding more to Dropbox. And every facility that Dropbox provides currently will be provided by the new system. And indeed, the new system is much more flexible as well to add more information to. So if I can just assure all members that we're not taking a backward step in terms of information sharing or management, it's actually a step forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that.
Chair, I would just ask that Mr. Mackenzie and colleagues communicate that to all members as soon as possible, and also how the material will be accessed in future.
Okay, Mr. Mackenzie, happy to follow that through.
Happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, that's item number 5 then, and we've got recommendations there at. Is Ian here? I couldn't see him. Sorry, Ian. I didn't see you on the screen.
Good morning, all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, in terms of investment delivery, just in terms of the unit itself, we do have a minimal revenue budget due to the funding model for investment delivery. There are only 3 of us, but we are forecasting expenditure in line with budget. The performance of the unit has been good, obviously with the lockdown during the early part of last year has impacted on the delivery of 2 of the projects, but we are now back on track with revised timetables and milestones. I've included as Appendix 1 to the report just a summary of the progress of the 4 main projects we're working on, which total a significant investment for the Comhairle and others of £122 million, and a summary of each of these projects, where they're at the moment, is included as Appendix 1 to the report. So happy to answer any questions. There is of course a concurrent item regarding the Barra project at item 15, but by all means, if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take them just now.
Thank you very much for that, Ian. Any questions from any members in terms of investment delivery? Is that Mr. McCormack? I think it's McCormack.
Yes, it is. I don't so much have any questions, but I would like to say how much I appreciate the work that's been done in this area. I mean, it's been a very difficult time to get construction work going, and there have been a lot of issues related to it. So it is wonderful to see the amount of work that has been done, especially at the Goat Hill development. And I was party to a meeting with, I think it was Stornoway Community Council, where Dan showed us some videos of that development as well, and that gave it a third dimension, if you like. And it is quite exceptional that we've managed to do all this at this time, and I just want to congratulate the group for it. I know there's not very many of them. It's something that's at the back of my mind, Leader, that we are relying on very small numbers of people to carry out tasks which were carried out by substantial departments in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Yeah, that is a challenge we have, I think, across the organisation, and it's good for us to acknowledge that and to recognise the different challenges that staff face now than they have done in the past. Mr. McKinnon, do you want to come back in there?
Just to say, I myself was on site just about a fortnight ago for the first time in quite a while. Obviously, with restrictions in place, it's not easy to have large parties on site, but I found that it doesn't matter how many years you spend looking at drawings, you'll never see never judge the sheer scale of a development until you're actually on there. And I think as soon as we can get the site open to normal visiting and normal arrangements, we'd be very happy. Ourselves and the contractor would be very happy to host visits to the site, because it really is taking shape now. And you'll see that some of the affordable housing, you can already see it from the road that it's well on the way, and there's, I think it's 28 units due for occupancy through HHP at the beginning of June, and then a phased approach through to the beginning of next year. So things are really taking shape, but it really is an eye-opener when you're actually on the site and see the scale of things. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you for that. Councillor Comhairle. No. You're on mute, Mr. McMillan.
Sorry. Fat finger syndrome, sorry. It was just to ask the director, is there anything in Lochmaddy that he could tell us, perhaps at the end of the meeting, when it need not be in public, about the state of the procurement and how that is going, just to allay our concerns that things aren't moving on track. It was just to send the director out to see if we could just have 2 minutes at the end of the meeting, just for a members briefing sort of thing, rather than the thing being open mic, as it were. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Mr. McKinnon, would that need to be prior?
No, it certainly wouldn't be. I mean, I've given an updated Appendix 1, and it's very much in the public domain that we're now back out on track to get a new contractor in place. In the meantime, we carried out some interim works on the site just to make sure they were safe and secure, and we used local supply chain contractors for that. We've also just recently let a contract to Macaulay Askernish to carry out some utility diversion works in advance of the main works contract. So that work should have started this week, if not the beginning of next week. And as I said, we're going back out to tender. It's a two-stage approach. Single procurement document was published just at the tail end of last week. And we are on track to have a new contractor in place probably around August, September later this year. A year's construction period after that, and we still have a comfortable period of time before the new vessel comes as well, we believe.
We certainly have plenty of time before the new vessel comes. Convener Norman Donald.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things in relation to the Investment Delivery Board, and a question for Ian. I think it is time that we should have a meeting of the Investment Delivery Board within the next few weeks or so, given the pace at which things are moving now, and the restrictions that have been in place through COVID seem to be easing off as well. So I think it'd be good for us to have a meeting and possibly even a visit to the site, as Mr. McKinnon mentioned there. The other question I have is for Mr. McKinnon is whether all of the contractual and financial issues have been resolved with the owner of the land that the development is on. I know that there were some protracted discussions, shall we say, with regard to that, and I'm not going into the detail of it. I just want to hear from Mr. McKinnon whether that's been resolved or not at this stage.
Okay, the discussions with the landowner had quite a number of different facets to it, and some of which really only related to discussions between them and HHP as the owner of the land. I think probably what would be more beneficial for members is for Dan and I to provide you with maybe a written update highlighting if there are any outstanding issues that need to be resolved, and happy to do that. And I'm also very happy to work with colleagues in Democratic Services to organise another meeting of the Investment Delivery Board. Its interests are obviously more than just Goat Hill project, but given HHP's involvement in that board, it's also the Barra project will have a significant interest for the board as well. So happy to work with colleagues in doing that. But insofar as land issues, I think it would probably be more beneficial for members if we provide you with a written briefing of any outstanding issues.
Okay, thank you for that.
We can do that by email forthwith.
Okay, we look forward to that. In that case, can I ask members who are happy to agree to note the reports of 5A, B, C and D? Thank you very much. We move on now to item 6, which is the growth deal for the islands. It's a report providing an update on the growth deal for the islands and looking for approval of the next steps in its development and implementation. It's a 10-year package of investment that will seek to drive economic growth and create sustainable jobs across Shetland, Orkney and the Western Isles. As you know, heads of terms for the deal were signed on the 17th of March. The three islands council will now put in place a joint governance structure to manage the deal. And what we're looking for here is delegation to allow the Chief Executive, in consultation with the Director for Communities, to agree the governance model on behalf of the Council, which will reflect the outline governance proposals which the Chief Executive set out in this report to committee in December. This will include a strategic partnership board or joint committee, whatever name they come up with, and include in due course representation from members. Over to you, Mr. Bird.
Thank you, Chair. This is a joint report from me and from Eilean McKeever, Director for Communities. I'll concentrate on the process issues. You all know that the next phase of this is to progress the proposals to the required Green Book business case standard, and that work is well in hand. I'll not talk about the projects themselves, and if there are questions about those, Mr. McKeever is best placed to deal with them. But delivery of the deal requires a bit of governance. That's required by both governments. That's not just a structure that we're putting in place of our own volition. We need to have that. Obviously, we want to make that as light as possible. We want to make it reflective of the fact we are three equals in this partnership. When I reported to you in December, I indicated that our preferred model was the partnership board. It may be easier to work through a joint committee, hence the delegation is sought. But in essence, there's a governing body which will have elected members from each of the three authorities on it. There'll be an officer board below that in the usual structure, and then there'll be the responsible teams for each project. We are about to advertise across the three councils for the programme management director or chief officer, and whoever hosts that post will also host the administration of the project. So it's a lot going on. I mean, the heads of terms were very well received by both governments, and that reflected the strength of the project. And you can see from the table at 6.5 who is leading on what, but a lot of these are cross-island, remember, they involve each council area, and the detail of the investments there is shown on 6.6. So moving forward, and I will let members know, of course, the details of the governance model when that's chosen, and hopefully in June we'll be able to confirm appointments to either the joint committee or the board. Happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? We've got Councillor Colin McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just more a question to the Chief Executive for when the projects are being progressed to the Green Book stage, and with particular reference at 6.5 and 6 about the energy hub, because that's 11 million that's been ticketed against that project, to consider moving or devolving and decentralising the energy hub as much as possible to Uist and to Barra, because there are community turbines here which generate energy as well, and so that we have a balancing of the skills rather than just the Lewis Castle. The Lewis Castle has campuses in Uist and Barra, so that the University of the Highlands and Islands, a decentralised campus, is utilised as much as possible. And I would hope to see some use made of these turbines. It's just occurred to me that as a director of the South Uist Estates, one of the community turbines is owned by the estate, so I would declare that interest. But certainly from the community benefit going forward, and also the what you might call knowledge is power, and if we can decentralise that into the communities, then it's certainly a benefit across the island chain in terms of the know-how and how we do things and how we develop and take things forward, even if it's only to show what can be done. That sort of aspect of community benefit is spread or located within the various islands within our chain, and not just concentrated in the Stornoway campus of the UHI. Thank you, Chairman. That's my bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that?
These are important points, Chair, and we're all aware of the work on renewable energy going on across the Western Isles. There are projects in every area. Mr. McKeever may be able to comment specifically on that, but that is the principles that Councillor McMillan speaks of are the essence of the deal, that it benefits the whole Western Isles as much as we can.
Mr. McKeever, do you want to just come back on that general point?
Yeah, just to briefly add to that, Leader, within the Energy Hub, there is a work stream in regard to how the benefits of the main investment are spread throughout the Outer Hebrides. So we will be working to see how that Energy Hub learning can be spread out across the islands. We're also working with the Island Centre for Net Zero Carbon, and there's £5 million worth of capital for investment in the Western Isles in the Centre for Net Zero. So we're looking at projects in particular in Uist and Barra in regard to that, and we've recently approved funding to assist a Uist energy plan to be put in place. So hopefully that energy plan becomes the basis for some of the future investment coming out of the energy elements of the deal. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Okay, any further comments or questions for either Mr. McKeever or Mr. Byrne? No, okay, in that case, the recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1 of the report. Approved, thank you very much. Item number 7, Community Empowerment Barra and Battersea. This is a report from the Chief Executive, and the purpose of the report is to recommend support for a model of community empowerment in Barra and Battersea, which would be capable of adoption elsewhere in the Western Isles. The primary focus of the Barra and Battersea Forum would be to coordinate, manage and support an inclusive, economic and green recovery for Barra and Battersea, which would also include the delivery of the community social and economic regeneration plan for Barra and Battersea and continued COVID support and monitoring role in the immediate period. The Forum could assume responsibility on a collective basis for advocacy and management of funding and work with community organisations to cooperate to achieve outcomes. Mr. Bird, do you want to speak to that before I ask members to contribute?
So, thank you, Chair, if you'll indulge me for a moment. I think that I hope this is a very welcome report for members. This is implementation of policy. We have spoken about community empowerment over many years, and we do community empowerment in many ways. But this is saying here is a model. It is the community's model. You will note throughout the report I have references to as the community wishes to develop it, and the word support. We are not imposing a model on anyone, but we are saying as the local authority, we have, of course, experience and we hope expertise in these areas, and this is how we can help guide, support, advise the community empowerment process. I'll talk very briefly about the national position. It's set out in paragraph 5, but you all know because you approved it, our submissions to the review of local governance. That's at a slight spurt of activity in the last month, and those of you who were at the COSLA conference noted that there was one of the 2 workshops was on that very subject, and it is good to see before an election, it all depends of course who's forming the new government, a statement from government and from COSLA that there is an intention to keep this work going and to build on it, and more importantly to bring it to a conclusion. I think we would all welcome that. But part of our submission, of course, was we might want an integrated island authority, and we do, but part of that is integrated community empowerment, and where communities wish it, integrated community governance. And this is a step on that road. I've set out the history of how Barra and Battersea have developed their own networks. They have 2 at the moment, one for the regeneration plan, as it were, and one for COVID. Hopefully, obviously, the COVID one will become not required in due course. And I won't take you through the detail of the report, but I do commend it to you. I think it's quite an interesting process. Finally, from me, Leader, any group or organisation with responsibilities needs officer support. Otherwise, no matter how committed the people are, it's all voluntary activity, and you're presuming on people's time and effort. So we have been able to support the Barra and Battersea Forum hitherto with a level of officer support, and we would do that. That was why the Comhairle, in its wisdom, and I mean that, set aside a sum from the Crown Estate funding to support just this kind of officer support, because volunteers cannot do it all on their own, and it's not right that they should. And the arrangements for that are set out at 6.5 and 6.6. We are, of course, sensitive to other community bodies, not least community councils, which are elected to social services organisations, in this case Voluntary Action Barra and Battersea, to community development companies, to all the other organisations which contribute to community life, and hence we will work sensitively through the forum to make sure that everybody is included in that. I've suggested the Barra and Battersea Forum membership is set out there. I think that's pretty good. I think it was chaired initially by the Director for Education and Children's Services. It's right that that moves across to a local chair. Probably best that that chair is accountable either through the Community Council or through some other means, and there's some suggestions there. Finally, I think for communities who want to look at this model, this is a model which I think is commendable. It's a model certainly we as local authority could support because it meets policy objectives and good governance. And if other areas, I know there are some areas which are interested in this model, we would equally be happy to support. But it's not compulsion, it's not imposing a model, it's for communities who wish to take advantage of it. Finally, any group needs a purpose. What's the purpose of this group? Primarily, it's to deliver the social and economic regeneration plan. That's there in its initial form. It clearly needs a bit more detail and work to give it some specific outcomes. But that's, I would say, exactly what a local forum should be doing in harmony with the local authority and with other public sector providers. Thank you very much. We're happy to take questions.
Thank you, Chief Exec, and it's good to see the progress we've made on this. And I would commend it to other members in other areas to have a look at it, as it looks like a good starter model for this particular agenda. Don Manford, first of all, Councillor Manford.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, Chief Executive, it is a welcome report. Considerably, a considered presentation. The points, some of the points I would make will be the importance you've sown into it, that it's locally led. Accountability buy-in to the local electorate, I urge must be at its heart, and that it be measured against that. In the context of that, as it develops, it must be very important that where it is local accountability, standards in public life need also to apply. In its general terms, I'm not suggesting that there is a specific need to race at it, but we don't want to be going down a road and find out this is something we should have done at some earlier date. It is important when we're dealing with public services that there is an accountability to the standards in public life. The Comhairle is politically and strategically committed to strengthening communities, strengthening democracy, minimize inequalities, and support redesign of service models on as local a level as possible. We are on a journey towards significant reforms. I commend the report and the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manford. And I'm encouraged that it came from your own end rather than from the Chief Executive's end, the point about standards in public life. And I think that's quite a crucial principle that we'll have to embrace throughout the whole process. And thank you for raising that issue. Do you want to come back, Mr. Burr?
Yes, I think we would expect any part of governance to uphold standards in public life, and I think we would, I suppose that's presumed, but Councillor Manford makes a good point. It would be good to incorporate that. The forum is not a legal entity. It may once and if there is a local governance act become one, but it would be quite reasonable to expect members of the core group of the governing body to abide by these standards, and we can write that into the governance documents.
Thank you. Convener?
Thank you, Chair. And again, I think this is a really good model that is transferable right across our islands. And I do think that we need to take cognizance of that. But there also needs to be a significant support network from not just from the local authority, but from the public sector generally, in terms of the wishes and the aspirations of some very remote communities. And as you've said yourself, Chair, this initiative started in Barra, and it is something that I think can be used very well right across the islands. And I certainly would endorse everything that Councillor Manford said in terms of how it needs to work, and it needs to work based on what the community's wishes are, rather than by diktat from other places. So I think this is a really good step forward, and I'm sure that many other members will be looking to do the same things in the wards that they represent on the Comhairle. But it isn't just about the Comhairle, it's about other public sector agencies as well, buying into the model and also doing their bit where that's required.
Thank you very much for that. I agreed entirely with that, Convener. We need buy-in from the other public sector agencies too. that we've got to get started with and get going with it, and it's good to see it at this stage. Councillor Steele, Paul Steele.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just I agree with what Donald and Norman have said. I think it's a really interesting, exciting report. The South US and Eriskay area are also looking at developing their forum, and the fact that this report's come out now is extremely timely for us. I mean, we met last week, and a lot of the stuff that's in the report is actually what we were discussing last week. So it's good to have that kind of, the legitimacy of the report kind of backs up what we were thinking ourselves locally. And we're looking at different models. It may not be exactly this model, but it's good to have this as a starting point. So just really good to see this report, and hopefully it's going to work out well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Steele. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we should put this, mark this date on the calendar, because I have to agree with everything the convener said. And I'm fully in supportive of this.
Steady on now, Callum, steady on.
Well, it was a small part of what you said, convener. It was just a very small part, so we can agree on that. The single island authority is something that I see we have a great opportunity with. And as the convener said, it's not just the council, but it's the likes of SDS, the Western Isles NHS, HIE, SERED, Scripidor, the current iteration of mnemonics that we have at the moment. There has to be an integrated approach, and we see this more acutely. And it doesn't matter whether it's Eilean and Vatersay or Mealista and Uig. The areas from which Stornoway and the centres of power are remote are where we see the greatest effect of a disconnect between the various agencies. And if we have a single stop shop, then that is something to be welcomed. And when we're talking about the Eilean coming into the council offices, well, I would look forward to the other agencies taking space there as well, so that you can make an arrangement to see somebody, or that the people there are more integrated in their focus, rather than being disparately located within the island, usually concentrated in Stornoway. And it's that where we have to make jobs available to the islands where they should be delivering the service. So that's where we have to look at the technological revolution caused by the COVID pandemic, where people can be located in their homes and still delivering a very effective work output. And that's something that I certainly wasn't sighted of until the COVID thing happened. I had heard of people who were working remotely, but I thought that this was something that happened where they were doing computing programming or something along these lines. I hadn't thought of the likes of the Comhairle offices being decentralized to people's homes, and us having the technology to almost be anywhere within the islands. I see it as a great opportunity. And as the Chief Executive said, we need service support for these things, and so that we have economic sustainability as a core feature. Because if we have economic sustainability, we will have population sustainability. Economics trumps all, and the purpose of local authority should be to facilitate economic benefit within these areas. And I see that as being the core thing that we as a Comhairle, or in this Comhairle, must look at. There is a juncture here where we must take a considered and strategic view of how we allow communities to develop. They will make mistakes, but we have to allow them to make their mistakes. And that's part of it, that we must allow community empowerment the opportunity to make mistakes and to rectify these mistakes, so that they have that outlook of long-term sustainability built in. And on that, I won't go on, Leader.
No, I think that's a prudent decision. Points well made. Thank you very much. Councillor Clyden.
Thank you, Chair. I very much welcome the report as well. I think it's a great opportunity and provides the foundation for further development of powers to communities, smaller communities. And I think we have lessons to learn from our friends in the Faroes, where we can see even smaller communities on Barrow and Battersea have extraordinary powers in terms of how they govern their communities, and we should continue to look to these examples and learn those lessons and see how we can use those examples to be implemented in our own communities. And as the Commissioner said, this model is transferable, and this should be the start of a journey to further community empowerment across our islands.
Thank you, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Ray McKenzie.
Hello. Yes. Sorry, I was late in joining the meeting actually because I was getting my second jab. So I'm sure you're all jealous of that. But, congratulations to the NHS. Yeah, I welcome this report and I'm extremely impressed by it. In fact, Barra and Battersea are a small, close-knit community, and I'm sure it's maybe easier for them to work together. But I can see, Councillor Steele has mentioned Eriskay and South Uist and so on. And I hope this will actually spread, as Councillor Crichton and the convener have said. Initially, I must just maybe mention one point, which, obviously there's a trend here today, and to welcome this and all the rest of it. And when Comhairle was set up, I'm sorry to go back to the history of the thing, but the object was to bring us all together. And I think that was welcomed throughout. Whilst this is a great report in itself, I would say there's one word of caution here, and it's obviously to do with funding of these, different areas. And the possibility of competition maybe between, or disputes between areas. Who's entitled to money and all the rest of it. So whilst I welcome this, obviously I think it's fantastic, and I hope the other areas will take them on board. I just hope it won't end up with people saying, they get more than we got, and and so on, which can happen. But I hope I'm not being too pessimistic today. I think it's a great report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. Back to convener, maybe.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just very briefly, whilst people were talking about the community involvement in this, I can go back some 20 years when there was a whole series of community appraisals being carried out based on what the community felt was important for their community, not necessarily trying to replicate things that were done in other places. And there were a whole series of community appraisals being carried out then, and I think I was probably a community worker with the council at that particular time. And the reality of that is that I still have the completed community appraisal, and I still tick off all of the things that have been delivered, albeit over a 20-year period. None of this is going to happen overnight, but if the community are solid behind the developments they want to see in their community, it can happen, even if it is over a long period of time. And I think maybe I'll certainly be going back to the community appraisal that was conducted for the area in Uig and Bernera, but others have been done as well right across the islands, and I think that could be a really good starting point for people, just to see how much was delivered of what the community wanted and who delivered best, in terms of the public sector agencies. So I think it's really important that we look back to some extent, but only by taking significant steps forward. And we have the opportunity with the Islands deal and a whole range of other things to nuance all of that stuff in a way that will work really well for all the communities throughout the islands.
Thank you for that, Convener. Councillor Carl McLean.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's a very good report here. It's easy to read, and you can see exactly where we're coming from. But our report is only good as far as it is acted upon, that is progressed, and that there are checkpoints and timescales within it. And I see that at least there's progress reports within that, and I hope that that does continue. It's an excellent piece of work, and those people who have done it are to be commended for it. But I can't go along with the convener in saying that the time limit. If we're going to wait another 20 years, we have a problem in the islands of population retention. And we have to be honest. And I don't believe that Farah and Battersea are exempted from that. So I think we do need action, but we need action pretty quickly, because we're seeing our communities vanishing, and we need action on this. And that's what's to be welcomed about this report. It is trying to address that. I would say that, I don't know if you would agree with that, is that the biggest problem we have in the islands is retention of our young people, and in other words, giving them the opportunities in order to stay in our communities.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor McLean. Of course, that's been a priority for us for the last 3 years in particular, and it's subject to many meetings with the government, and we've also had set up separate groups around depopulation. West Coast depopulation was a subject matter at Comhairle, and yes, it is a huge challenge for us, and one that we continually try and find ways of addressing. And I think myself personally that economic development and job creation are the key factors, and alongside that housing. So, the economy has to be there to sustain jobs, and we have to do everything we can to encourage and facilitate new jobs and new ways of working and new economic development in our islands. And that's what will keep our young people here, along with, of course, our continued battle to get improved digital connectivity. So thank you very much for that. I think we're all agreed it's a very positive and worthwhile report. And I think the Chief Executive has been deliberately not too prescriptive. So from the very start, we wanted to be facilitative and suggestive, but it's up to the community to run with it at their pace for their goals, as long as we give them the support along the way. So thank you very much. Are we happy to agree with the recommendations in paragraph 3.1? Thank you. On to then item 8, which is the local government benchmarking framework results. It's a report informing the council of the LGBF results for the Chief Executive's Department and recommends approval of the priority areas chosen for service improvement. Based on the analysis of the data appended to the report, it's recommended that priority areas, we can't do everything at the same time, so we're recommending some priority areas for service improvement, and we focus on reducing the gender pay gap and sickness absence rates within the council, and the progress of their performance should be reported to this committee within the Chief Executive's updates regularly at each series. I hope you can agree with that. Norma Skinner here to answer any question? I don't know if you want to add anything, Norma, at this stage, or Norma?
No, I don't have anything particular to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Thanks, Chair.
I think okay. Anybody got any questions for? No. Okay, we've had quite a detailed discussion around some of these issues previously anyway. So there's a recommendation for approval at 3.1. Happy to agree. Thank you very much. Item number 9 is the OHCPP, the update from the Outer Hebrides Community Planning Partnership. The report provides an update, and it's from the council's perspective, of course, as one of the lead partners in the OHCPP. The report also provides information about a range of other items. We've got somebody with their mic on. That's maybe it's just Angus proposing to address it. So Angus Murray is here. Angus, do you want to say anything to the report at the minute? No.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's basically an update of the community planning partnership, taking in the local outcome improvement plan, organisational structures, groups, subgroups, memberships, roles and remits, and the details in the body of the report. But this is deemed an opportune time to be reviewing the partnership. It's been a number of years since the local outcome improvement plan was developed, and quite a lot has happened in the interim. So we're looking to review the CPP and all its facets as per the recommendation, and with a view to taking this report or a version of it to the CPP executive to agree how best to take this forward. Thanks.
Members, any questions or queries or observations on this one? So recommended that there be a note to report, and then we've got a recommendation as how to proceed in consultation with the OHCCP executive group. Happy to agree to recommendations at 3.1a and b. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 10, which is Strategic Transport Projects Review, STPR2 as it's called. It's providing an update regarding STPR2, which takes a national overview of the transport network with a focus on regions and will help to deliver the vision, priorities and outcomes that are set out in the new National Transport Strategy, NTS2. STPR2 in its current form appears heavily biased towards transport assets owned and operated by the Scottish ministers, so that mainland trunk roads may be included, but the Outer Hebrides spinal route, although what we would call a regionally significant route, is excluded because it's not managed by the local authority. Has somebody got their mic on? Can you check that you've all got your mics on? Thank you. Bearing in mind that STPR2 will inform national transport policy for the next 20 years, it's a concern that several other island priorities have already been scoped out of it. These include aviation services, the air discount scheme, the RET scheme, inter-island fixed links, and digital connectivity. The Council's draft response to Transport Scotland is set out, as you can see, at Appendix 1 to the report, and Appendix 2 to the report contains a table of scoped-in priorities relevant to the Outer Hebrides. The Transport and Infrastructure Strategic Member Officer Working Group considered the report and the Council's draft response to Transport Scotland earlier this month on the 10th of March, and have agreed to request a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure and Connectivity to discuss further the Council's concerns. Angus Murray is here if people have any questions around this. I think it's quite clear what issues with it, what concerns with it, and we do want to raise these concerns with government.
Yes.
Mr. Bird, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to commend this approach to members. I mean, it's a very important point, and as any strategic transport project review is, it's very important that our needs are there and are recognised. And I would just commend that both the letter and the recommendations to you. We have been in touch with other councils, as you've said, other islands councils who are of the same view and aligned to the same strategy, if you agree.
Thank you for that. Councillor Colin McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. I mentioned this at the Transportation Committee, and looking at the STPR, it's a list of projects which we can get back to Transport Scotland or the Minister as to what we support. Now, I do wonder if we're looking at the same page, because when you mention that the fixed links between Bernary and Harris and Eriskay and Barra are not in, they are. And I would say to you to look at 2327 and 2328. They are here, and it's up to us to report back to Transport Scotland and the ministers to see which projects we see as a priority. The spinal route, yes, if you come to UIST, you'll see the priority of the spinal route that the Comhairle has given it over all the years, and where we still have a two-way traffic on a single track road, and that's for most of it. And as even for the improvement of fuel efficiency, you have twice the fuel consumption on single track roads than you have on roads where you have 2 lanes. So that's something that is an additional cost to single track roads that seems to be ignored. Now, the other part of this that I see as a council not supporting, and these are Transport Scotland strategic projects, is 2331, the tunnel to a fixed link between Benbecula and Skye, and also moving the Malig ferry terminal into Loch Nevis. That again is included here. Now, we as a council should be saying to Transport Scotland, these are projects which we will approve. And what I'll be seeking to do at Comhairle is to put an amendment to this item 10 so that these projects are supported and included in the letter. It's fine to say what you are against, but politically we also have to say what we are for. And the letter doesn't say anything about what we are for. And so it's obviously not, maybe I'm talking a different language, and that it's quite fine to ignore what I'm saying as a member of Comhairle. But if it goes to the vote in terms of an amendment, then that is something that the whole of Comhairle has to have a view on. It's not just me being ignored. Either Comhairle is for these strategic links, or Comhairle is quite happy to go its own separate way and just say, you have not done what we have wanted. Yes, that can be included as additional projects, but the projects that they have said, here is the sifted out list of projects, but I think it was 6.1 in the transportation one. These are the list of sifted projects. Which are the ones that you see as a priority so that these can then be progressed? If we can support the fixed link, we're talking about 18 months to hopefully getting started on the ground. It's a fairly quick opportunity, but it's down to us to say, what do we want? And yes, the LTS is a separate exercise, and the SEA for that would have to be done over the next while. But it's something that we have to look at in terms of a strategic link. We'd still be an island, except we wouldn't have the costs of ferry travel, which quite honestly are exorbitant at the moment, notwithstanding the fact that we're not allowed to travel. But again, that will end. So I would commend it to you, Council Leader, to support 2331 and the project to move the ferry port at Malig into Loch Nevis, where it's sheltered from the winds that we experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on the fixed links between islands is something that's been an aspiration for some time. Fixed links to the mainland, I've never seen any mandate for us as a council to consider or to drive for that. It's got huge implications for a lot of reasons. Accessibility and transport are not the only reasons. There's social implications too. And in all the community conversations we've had, it has not been an issue that has been raised, that I've seen raised. I've seen maybe one or two members raise it, and I know that it was raised by our MP occasionally. But I have not seen any mandate given to us or anywhere from the community some desire for us to de-island our islands. So I don't think it's something that we can just chuck into some response to a strategic document and say, let's go for it. I think there's an awful lot of work that has to go on for that. And maybe as we're at the end of a term, we should be contemplating whoever's standing for the next term to include that as part of their consultation with the public and to see if that's something that people want. So I don't think it's something that we can just jump on immediately. I think there's lots of implications. We have to work them out, and then we have to then go to our people and see what they think about it. So I certainly wouldn't be comfortable in trying to push that particular fixed link to the Scottish mainland at this juncture. However, Mr. Bird, do you want to comment
Thank you, Chair. As you say, we will debate that matter tonight on if and how we deal with it. But at 6.1, I think we are saying very clearly, and Mr. Murray will give the detail of this, what we are for. The problem is 6.1 lists what we consider important and what we would support. The problem is that these have been scoped out of the process. So I think if it's felt that the letter is unduly negative, I think that is because what we have clearly identified, and I think looking at the list of projects on 6.1, I think any resident of the Western Isles, would recognise these as the major issues, including the roads to which Councillor Macmillan referred. So we're very clear what we are supportive of, but unfortunately, these seem to have been sifted out or scoped out of the process, which is why we are saying this whole review should be island impact assessed to give it the necessary context. But Mr. Murray will have greater detail on that.
Okay, Mr. Murray, if I can just bring you in here, just to confirm that these items which we're listing in 6.1 are the things that are priorities for us, and that is what we are saying to government. It's not that our negativity surrounds the fact that the things that are important to us have been sifted out, and we want them reinstated, and we want to have an island's impact assessment to ensure that these items in 6.1 are in fact considered in outcome. Mr. Murray, over to you.
No, Chair, that's correct. That's absolutely correct. And just to reiterate Chief Executive's comments, these are the significant transport developments that we would like to see happen under STPR2. And if they're not going to happen under STPR2, we need some assurances that they're going to be included in the island's connectivity plan. And there's no guarantee of that either. Just on the local transport strategy, it's not a separate exercise actually. It's it's cohesive. We've tried to integrate with the regional strategies and also national transport strategy objectives. It preceded to some extent in terms of development the National Islands Plan, but we would certainly like to see a lot of integration or more integration between the local transport strategy, National Islands Plan, connectivity plan, STPR2, and everything in line with the objectives of the National Transport Strategy, which greatly is about inclusiveness and accessibility, irrespective of where you are in Scotland. Incidentally, there's an opportunity to respond also to the consultants. It's an online survey. I will circulate it after this meeting, and I would welcome any comments on it. I will be submitting it at midnight. That's the deadline. I won't be submitting it at midnight, obviously. We'll just submit it before then. But if I could get some comments before close of play today, however brief, on any aspect of any question in that survey, I'd be happy to include those sentiments if they're,
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Murray. Thank you. So we're clear there on what we're trying to do at this juncture, where we feel that we've been isolated and neglected a little bit in terms of our own priorities, and we wish to raise that with government. Are people happy to accept the recommendation in paragraph 3.1?
Agreed.
Thank you for that. Item 11 is write-off of debts, the report by Norman MacDonald, our head of accountancy. It's recommending that irrecoverable debts totaling 61,000 in respect of council tax, Sunday debts and housing benefit overpayments be written off. Every effort has been made to recover debts due, and write-off recommendations have made, as you know, only when all recovery routes have been exhausted. Norman is in attendance if anybody's got any questions, and its recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1. Has anybody got any questions or comments for Norman? No. Okay, happy to agree with recommendations. Thank you. Item 12 is winter maintenance. It's a report from Carl Mackenzie, our head of property and infrastructure, providing an update to members on the current financial spend and the service redesign discussions from the Transport and Infrastructure Strategic Member Officer Working Group, the MOUG, which was held on the 10th of March 2021. Basically, following a relatively mild start to the winter with very little activity in October and November, the recent months have seen a significant increase in activity. Spend to date on winter maintenance activities is estimated at about 1.7 million. The annual budget is about 1.4, and the forecast overspend at year end, assuming further treatment activity, which is not guaranteed, but assuming that, is 500,000. The Council agreed on the 3rd of February 2021 that the current priorities for winter service be maintained for the contract period 2022 to 26, subject to review by the Transport and Infrastructure MOUG. Mr. Mackenzie, do you want to speak to that briefly or just take questions?
I'm happy to take questions, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got any questions for, I think we've been through this at transportation in terms of the detail. Any questions for Carl? In that case, we have recommendations of 3.1, which is note the current financial position, and 3.1b, which is simply agreeing with the MOUG's recommendation with the current policy. Happy to agree. Thank you very much. Item 13 is in private, which I mentioned at the start. Item 14, procurement strategy. Tim Langley is with us for this one. It's looking for approval of the procurement strategy for 2021 to 2023. The draft procurement strategy for 21-22 and 22-23, taking account of the matter set out in the report, is appended to the report. And maybe, Tim, do you want to speak to the report or just take questions?
Just very briefly, Chair, just to draw your attention to really the points to note are in paragraph 2.2. These are will be the most important factors for the next couple of years. There's potential developments in the law following the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. There's the climate change agenda, and possibly most important of all, there's the community wealth building plan, all of which are moving documents and I expect them to develop quite significantly. So I'll keep abreast of those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langley. Councillor Gordon-Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Langley, for this report. But I recall that myself and Councillor McMillan asking for the procurement strategy and procurement policy, and I think this was agreed and it was confirmed in the minute just at the start of this meeting where we asked for that. So I wonder if the policy could be circulated as well. But in saying that, and from what I've read, this makes good reading actually, and I do note the success of the procurement strategy, which was referred to in the Chief Executive's report and the local government benchmarking framework. But without seeing the policy, I just want maybe Mr. Langley to confirm a few things that in terms of that we only accept tenders from contractors that pay the living wage as per the Act that's referenced. And in terms of projects, is it the case that the Comhairle will supervise or have full-time supervision in all these projects, large projects? Also, when choosing tenders, how much weighting is put on quality as opposed to that saying on time, on budget mantra that we hear now and again, which seems to win the day. So I don't know if Mr. Langley has any comments on these, but I would really appreciate if he would circulate or send it to myself or members who are interested, the actual procurement policy. A very important document at this point in time. Thanks.
Okay, so Mr. Langley will send you a copy of the policy. Do you want to deal with these questions?
I can certainly deal with a couple of those, Chair. The first one was in relation to whether we only accept tenders from contractors who pay the living wage. The simple question as to whether a contractor pays the living wage or not is not, and it's been established through court cases, is not a lawful ground for evaluating a tenderer in itself. But the government has provided some helpful guidance to all contracting authorities on evaluation criteria which they could use in respect of the wider concept of fair working practices, which the government is encouraging all contracting authorities to assess when they complete tendering processes, and that is what we do. And a part of that is consideration as to whether contractors do pay the living wage. But to answer your question directly, it's not lawful to require or to evaluate tenders on whether or not someone does pay the living wage in itself, but it's certainly a valid consideration as part of the wider test of fair working practices. Okay. The other point, yes, the weighting on quality. It's several years ago, the law was changed. It's no longer lawful to assess tenders just on price, and we haven't been doing that since that law changed. So we do have a balance of quality and price, and the ratio between those two varies depending upon the nature of the contract and the relative importance of those two. And quality includes the sorts of things I've just mentioned, fair working practices, but would of course include all the specific issues related to the contract in question. So price is of course a very important factor, but the weight to which we give it depends upon the nature of the specific contract. And sorry, the other point you asked was concerning the large projects. I'm not really sure I can really answer that.
No. It's okay. Councillor Murray? I'll ask, before you come back, I'm sure Mr. McKinnon can talk about project involvement. Mr. McKinnon, can you just respond to that query about managing projects?
Yeah, I mean, the choices that we make at the time around what level of supervision that we provide during the construction process is very much taken on a project by project basis. But one of the things that we've found in the last several years now is that by looking firstly at the contractor's own quality assurance processes and details of that are considered through the evaluation process in the procurement stages. But coupled with the contractor's own quality assurance procedures, we have involvement of staff, either staff internally or through the appointment of consultants. And one of the big benefits that we've found is that by involving our own staff early on in the process, whether it's to do with building fabric or mechanical electrical systems, it enables them to have a much greater familiarisation with the project through the commissioning stage. And of course, a lot of these members of staff will then will be responsible for operating and maintaining the buildings going forward. So it is something that we put a lot of weight on, and it is something that, particularly following on from the Oxgangs incident in Edinburgh a few years ago, government and other agencies are very much focusing on making sure that there is a proportionate investment in supervision and quality assurance. And as I said, we see benefits in that in the longer term as well.
Okay, Councillor Murray, do you want to come back before I begin the convener?
Yeah, I was going to say to Mr. McKinnon, well, without seeing the policy, is he saying that full-time supervision is in the policy, or are you saying it's by a project-by-project basis?
Yeah, that's correct. It's by project basis as required. I think that's what it is.
And also, while Mr. Langley's circulating the policy, it would be helpful if Mr. Langley, and I know Mr. Langley is always helpful, if he would maybe give us a link to the act that he refers to as well. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Langley, can you give Mr. Murray a link to the act? Yes. Save him having to look it up himself. Thank you. Convener?
Thanks, Leader. Just very briefly to ask Mr. Langley if through all the procurement processes that are ongoing, is there still quite close cooperation with Scotland Excel, who we're very much part of in terms of minimising the cost and delivering projects tenuously, if you'll pardon the pun, Tim.
Yes, regular contact and close contact with Scotland Excel. You'll be aware that they have various national frameworks. An issue we have here, just by nature of our location, is that many of those frameworks are not accessible to us because suppliers on those frameworks do not cover our area. But that's not a new issue. That's been the case for many years, certainly since I've been involved, and long before that. So, but yes, to answer your question, we do have regular contact with Scotland and Southern. They are very supportive of our aims.
Thank you very much, Mr. Langley. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome this report made up by Mr. Langley. Just a couple of points, Chair, in regards to the scoring and giving out on contracts and that. Are we really looking at, we speak locally, Chair, of the aspect of shop local. We should be looking at contract local as well, more and more, and within that maybe take a leaf out of North Lanarkshire, where they look at the aspect of the living wage, apprenticeships, paying business rates, and within that added scoring, so that when they apply through the procurement strategy, there's support given a wee bit more to local companies having the opportunity. And the other thing I think we need to add in, and I can't find it within the procurement strategy, is the community interest benefit. It's important, especially in the bigger projects that we're doing, that is a clause. HHP have it as a clause in the big projects they do, and that supports the community, but I can't really find that within our own procurement strategy. But 2 points there quickly, Chair, on the basis of extra scoring for local firms and shop local, contract local, I would say as well, as much as possible to support our economics within these islands.
Okay, I can confirm that procurement team are very, very clear on the directive that we've given them, which was since the start of this council, which is at every opportunity spend locally within the law. And I think early on I gave this sort of example that if it costs us, £1 in the islands, but 80p in Glasgow, we should still spend the pound in the islands because of the benefit to our economy and the circulation of money. And I think that Mr. Langley and his team are very clear on that. And in fact, over the past years, they've been making more and more progress in that, and the stats on where they can spend locally and the percentage that they're doing that is improving. So I'm very pleased to see that. What we do need to do is, I feel, get that message through, not just to procurement, who are just really acting under instruction from the different sections, but the sections themselves and departments, when they're spending, have to be aware of that particular principle too. So it becomes a feature throughout our council that, in fact, that procurement, smart, wise local procurement is a community, is a real lever in their community wealth building aspirations. And I know that I've had discussions with Tim about this, and he's very aware of it, and is going to lead the team accordingly around that. But perhaps just a couple of responses, Tim, around what Councillor Nicholson was saying.
Yes, on the community benefits side of it, there is a separate community benefits policy. References made to it in the strategy, probably in more general terms of sustainable procurement. But certainly I would take that to mean, in part at least, the use of community benefits wherever possible. To say we already have a policy that they are considered for every contract. I can't say that they're included in every contract because it depends very much on the nature of the specific contract, but certainly they are considered in every procurement process. The other point about contracting locally, Leader, you just covered that. We are, of course, still bound by national procurement laws, which prevent us from discriminating unlawfully, but we do promote the use of local contractors, at least giving them contracting opportunities in every case.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Leader. I agree with what you've said, and thank you, Mr. Langley, for these responses.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Leader, for letting me back in. I just wanted to ask Mr. Langley, is training, procurement training, included in the policy? And just as a matter of information, when was the policy last changed? Thanks.
I couldn't tell you when the last policy was changed off the top of my head. I'd certainly check that and
send it to Mr. Murray.
Yeah,
I don't know. Okay.
Yes, there is training. All the procurement staff are actually currently undergoing training, external training, so there is an ongoing program. Thank you. Okay, recommendation for approval of 3.1 of the report. Happy to agree. Thank you very much. Item 15 is the Barra and Battersea Community Campus. We've got Mr. McKinnon and Mr. Burr with us for this one. It's providing an update on the progress of the Barra and Battersea Community Campus project and looking for delegated authority to conclude terms associated with the acquisition, occupancy and disposal of areas of land and property associated with the project and to approve revisions to the project governance arrangements. Copies of the dashboard progress and look-ahead reports considered by the Project Executive Board on the 29th October 2020 are included as Appendix 1 to the report for information, and more detailed accounts of the progress achieved against each of these headings as is included in the report in front of you and in the appendices. Perhaps I get Ian, do you want to, or Malcolm, either one, who's wanting to give an intro before I bring in members? You're quite happy
I'm
to
quite happy to take
the report stands as it is. Ian, do you want to comment?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to provide a further update, you'll see that one of the major pieces of work that we've been working on is what we've called the investment business case, and that was submitted to colleagues across a number of directorates within Scottish Government in the middle of February. We now have a date in everybody's diary for that cross-directorate workshop. It's being held next Friday, Friday the 9th of April. The sort of main outcomes from that are first of all, given the unprecedented level of integration that we're seeking to achieve with the project, it's crossing quite a number of directorates within Scottish Government, and it's very much more than just the sum of the three main parts. But the first outcome is really to make sure that we have cross-directorate consensus to endorse the continuation of the project through the design stages and into financial close. We also want to have discussions and dialogue with them in terms of what steps can be taken to explore further funding sources to bridge the gap that exists, that you'll see from the executive summary that's included as Appendix 2 to the report, that we still have a gap of about £2.9 million, which does sound like a lot of money actually, but when you consider that to date we have been able to establish a funding package of just over £51 million, and when you consider that the council's own contribution to that is only £9.9 million, that's a phenomenal amount of leverage that we've been able to establish. That there, however, remains that £2.9 million gap, which we have to work at by both looking at the project cost, but at the same time trying to augment the funding package that exists. And last but not least, we also want to get cross-directorate agreement in terms of a gateway review. It's Scottish Government's own process, just to ensure that there is and there remains high confidence in the successful delivery of the project. You'll see other various appendices within the report. Appendix 3 sets out the terms of reference for the Community Stakeholder Advisory Group. The first meeting of that will be held next month. And Appendix 5 to the report is a copy of the presentation that was given by the design team to a wide range of users that we had as part of an series of engagement workshops. And you'll see how from that how the design is developing on from the concept through to outline design. As you say, that there are a couple of recommendations around seeking delegation of authority to the Chief Executive. First of those relates to around delegated authority to conclude various agreements and contracts with the parties. You'll see in Appendix 4 to the report what is necessarily quite a complicated framework of organisations and parties and agreements and contracts, again because of the unprecedented level of integration that we're seeking to establish. So the recommendation B seeks delegated authority to the Chief Executive to conclude as many of those as possible under the on behalf of the Comhairle. The other one, recommendation C, relates to, as you say, the disposal and the acquisition of land and property arising from the project. The last recommendation there relates to the details set out in section 11 of the report, and it has been brought about following the departure of a number of board members on the members of the project executive board. So you'll see in the table at paragraph 11.6 what we propose as interim arrangements. That reflects the interim senior management arrangements within the Comhairle, and will then seek to revisit those in the longer term to ensure consistency with the outcomes of the currently ongoing review of senior management structures within the Comhairle. Just as an aside, I think it's going back to an item that you were considering earlier on in the agenda around the Barra and Battersea empowerment and local governments. There is really very, very strong links between the strategic case for the investment of this nature in Barra and Battersea, between that and the community benefit and social value agenda and the legacy that we're hoping to provide as part of the project. It's not just about us building a new school and building a new hospital and building a new care home. It's what the legacy that we can provide as a result of that. And you'll see in the action plan, which was included as the appendix to that report, this project is going to make quite a significant number of contributions to the key actions and the milestones within that plan. And that all acts as a foundation for the strategic case. So that's really just a further update, but maybe Malcolm wants to come in about the governance arrangements, but I'm happy to answer any other questions around the project itself.
Thank you for that, Ian. That latter part is what I was just going to comment on myself. It's not just about buildings, it's about building a new way of doing things, and it's very exciting. Before I bring in the council members, Malcolm, did you just have a tweak to the recommendation?
I do, and it's in retrospect at 11.6 on the governance arrangements. At the moment, of course, the post of Director for Assets, Finance and Resources is vacant, and I should probably have added that to the list. There can't be a name against it just now, of course, and the project is ably supported on the finance side by Norman MacDonald in the interim. But I think if you're agreeable, I'll just add the post of Director for Assets, Finance and Resources to 11.6, and then when an appointment is made, that person can immediately take up the position. As Mr. McKinnon says, inevitably there will be variations from time to time as people move and change, but there's a lot of detail in this report about the delegated authority to move the project on, and I commend the report to members.
Thank you for that. Councillor Manford?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just briefly want to welcome the report and all the hard work that's gone into doing it. It feels like a very long time since this was started, but that is concerned with the previous two failed outline business cases to full business case. This is indeed the third one, and much larger. The focus is moving at our local level onto concerns, fears about the disruption, and looking more and more to deal with the details. It is for that reason that I wholly support, welcome the delegations of authority down from committees to the chief executive in order to progress these things.
Is that you done, Donald? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, there's something else come in at exactly the same time, which I can't reach right now. So yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, and yeah, I agree with you about that. It gives the delegations give the flexibility which allow pace to be applied to it. It's absolutely important. Thank you, Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, I think the long, detailed report very good to be getting to this stage. And in terms of the recommendations, yeah, I agree, and Malcolm's suggestion makes sense. The question I was going to ask Ian was just about the detail of the report. It mentions option 1D as the preferred model, and I know we've been working on kind of slight variations to it in terms of the sporting facilities outdoors. I think we looked at layout option 3 at one of the last meetings, and I'm just looking for an update on the sports facilities, including the temporary facilities that will be put in place during the decant. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. McKinnon?
Yeah, happy to do that. I think we have run the risk of confusing people with a number of different options that we are referring to and that we're using. The preferred option 1D actually relates to the options that we looked at as part of the feasibility study back in November 2019. And insofar as the development of that going forward, Councillor Steele is correct to point out that the current preferred option for the sports facilities is option 3 within a different evaluation exercise. So we've just got to be very careful that we are referring to these the options correctly. The difficulty that we've got is that, the challenge that we've got for the project, and going back to a point that Councillor Manford made earlier on, is that there is unavoidably going to be disruption within the community and to the school whilst we are building the new facility. And we will absolutely continue to seek to minimise that as much as possible. But the provision of decant accommodation, whether it's for the school and for sports facilities, is one of the biggest elements of the project, and we're still working through a number of options around that. It represents a large chunk of the project, and taking on board what I was saying about seeking to minimise the amount of disruption experienced by the school and the wider community. We still have a bit more work to do on that, not least the provision of temporary sports facilities granted it's not for the full period of disruption, but there is still a period of disruption where temporary sports facilities will have to be provided as best as we can, and we're working on the detail of that just now.
Thank you for that, Mr. McKinnon. Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you, Leader. Welcome this report. This is a phenomenal report that's before us, and with the work of Mr. McKinnon and his staff. The point I would like to make, leaders, I think we should do more media on this. I think we should do more PR on this. This is an example of not only community empowerment, engagement, partnership, and the way forward for the community, for the next generation as well. And I would suggest, Leader, that this project that's before us today as members is probably one of the top projects within Britain today, of bringing people together, bringing community together, and looking at working for the future. And I congratulate Mr. McKinnon and the members down in Uist and Barra and all those that have been involved in this. But I would like to see a wee bit more PR on it, more media on it, because this could be the catalyst to encourage other communities throughout Scotland, throughout Britain, to take this model on board. It's a fantastic model, and well done to all that's involved.
Yes, it's always been recognised as what they call a pathfinder model by Scottish Government. It's one of the top projects that's why we've been able to leave it in such support as described by Mr. McKinnon earlier on. It is exciting. I'm sure we'll take the opportunities to do the publicity as and when appropriate. Mr. McKinnon, do you want to come back on that?
Just to say that we do have both a communications and engagement strategies as part of the project structures. We do have a multi-agency communications team, but I have to say over the last couple of months we have been very much focusing on providing information and engaging at a local level. But I think Councillor Nicholson is right to point out that given the pathfinder nature of the project, it's worth us expanding that out and making people not just within the islands but at a national, at least a regional level, aware of what we're seeking to achieve. And we'll happily take that suggestion on board, and through the comms team we'll work something up.
Yeah. It's another example where throughout the COVID year, for example, we just haven't been treading water. We've still been working away at these key projects, and it's good to hear about that one, and even earlier today about the care facilities. Councillor Carl McMillan.
Thank you, Chairman. This again is a good example of single island authority on the ground, if we can make it happen, and I look forward to June of this year. And I would commend two aphorisms to the director. The first is that you can't get an omelette without breaking eggs, and the second is that when it comes to criticism, never show fools and children something half done. When you're looking at something this innovative, it is one of the things that there will be criticism, but to stick to it, and the end or the end result, as I see it, will certainly justify the confidence that has been shown from the chief executive and the project board and the people who are doing it on the ground. So I would wholeheartedly commend it and look forward to finally, after many iterations, getting the green light. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's one of our roles as members, I think, to help communities keep their eye on the prize in these things. Where there might be inconveniences along the way and disruption, the prize is worth it. Councillor Nicholson, you want in again?
Just a point, Chair. I would suggest, Chair, that we look at engaging with BBC Alaba and making a programme about this from the start to the finish, because this not only affects Scotland and the Pathfinder, this is an example for the rest of the nations in Europe, in my view. It's a phenomenal project, and I think we should be using it in a way that encourages our own community, other communities in Scotland and further afield. I would suggest that we look at some sort of project like that, to look at from the start to the finish of this Pathfinder project.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Nicholson, and I'll let Mr McKinnon and Mr Bird take that back to the Project Executive Board and to determine a way forward around that. So, good news story. Anybody get any other questions on this? Happy to agree the detailed recommendations with a slight tweak from the Chief Executive. Yeah. Thank you very much. Item 16 is European funding. It's a consultation on subsidy control. You mustn't get overexcited about this subject. This report seeks to obtain approval of the Council's proposed response to the UK Government's consultation on a new subsidy control regime. The consultation period closes today. The UK Government's stated aims in respect of a subsidy control regime are summarised in paragraphs 6.2 to 6.7 of the report. There's actually no requirement for the Council to respond to the consultation, but if it does, then it's proposed that its response should align with those of the body set out in section 7 of the report, and we should also express the same concerns contained therein. It's also proposed that the Council should ask the UK Government to take into account the particular needs of the islands of Scotland and to evidence that it has done so by undertaking an islands community impact assessment, although of course it's under no legal obligation to do so. And that general principle, apart from anything, where we can raise the island community impact assessment as a feature of any feedback or any report to keep its profile high, I think that reason alone we should be responding. But Mr. Langley, do you want to just briefly explain what's involved here?
Just very, very briefly, thank you, Chair. This is consultation that the UK Government is undertaking on laws to replace the EU's state aid regime, which we are no longer subject to after 31st of December last year. The Trading Cooperation Agreement sets out some general terms to govern what's now referred to as subsidy control rather than state aid. State aid being the particular EU phrase for it, but it's essentially the same thing. And the UK Government now has some discretion. It's not a blank page, but it does have some discretion to come up with a new regime, which the government's indicated it intends to be rather less rigid than the EU state aid regime. So this, the consultation has gone out asking for responses, and you'll see in the reports that there appears to be broad support for the government's stated aims. COSLA and the Scottish Local Authorities Economic Development Group have or will be submitting responses with some particular points relevant to their areas, and I'm asking for delegation to the Chief Executive to respond to the consultation on behalf of the CORLA in essentially those same terms, with the addition, as the leader just mentioned, in respect of the islands assessment.
Thank you for that, Mr. Langley. Are members got any questions? If not, are you happy to approve the recommendations of 3.1? Yes, thank you very much. On to item 17, which is about a range of funds which are coming on stream. The report provides an update to the Council on the UK's government's Community Renewal Fund, that's a CRF, the Levelling Up Fund, LUF, and a Community Ownership Fund. The UK government announced the launch of these funds on the 3rd of March. The Community Renewal Fund and CRF and the LUF. So taking the Community Renewal Fund, first of all, it's effectively a pilot, which in turn will inform the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. It's for 1 year only and will provide £220 million funding to help places across the UK prepare for the introduction of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The investment priorities are as follows: investment in skills, investment for local business, investment in communities and place, and supporting people into employment. And details on the CRF is in paragraph 6.1 to 8.2 of the report. The second one, the UK Levelling Up Fund, LUF, will invest up to £4.8 billion from 2021 to 2025 across the UK, with about £400 million of that invested in Scotland. The fund will be jointly managed by the Treasury, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and the Department for Transport. The LUF has 3 investment themes for the first round of funding in 2021-22, transport investments, regeneration and town centre investment, and cultural investment. Further detail is provided in paragraphs 9.1 to 12.2 of the report. And thirdly, the UK Community Ownership Fund will aim to, quote, empower communities to protect vital community assets in their area by providing funding to take ownership over them in support of the social well-being of local communities. Through this, £150 million will be made available directly to communities so that communities can support and continue to benefit from local facilities, community assets and amenities. The prospectus for this fund will be available in the summer, in June 2021. There are recommendations in the report, and Angus Murray will answer members' questions. The report gives details of these funds and information around them. Angus, do you wish to speak at the minute or just take questions? Okay.
Just to share that these are the successors to European structural funds, and these represent significant external funding opportunities in the coming years. The initial funding round is quite challenging, particularly because we have to undertake some consultation, not just internally with colleagues within the council, but also with other key agencies locally. But the deadline of 18th June is quite a challenging deadline for the submission of this.
Okay. Before I bring members in, can I take in Chief Exec?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Murray's made the point, but I have to say to members to bear with us, because we will of course consult on what is being put in on your behalf, but we are dependent on response times from other local agencies. So you may be receiving some of my "please let me know by Friday night if you're not happy" emails, but do bear with us. There is a lot of funding here, as Mr. Murray said. This is the successor, or part of the successor, funding for European structural funds. We've tried to give some helpful examples in the report of what we think the criteria what might be supported through these funds, and we'll have to tailor the bids accordingly. We will, of course, do all we can to ensure that the whole of the Western Isles benefits, but as I say, we may be asking you for some quick views on what goes in, just because of the challenging timescale.
Okay. And before I bring members in, I'm sure we would all agree that we're quite happy to get quick views and quick turnaround, rather than forsake the opportunity of actually putting in bids. So I think that's the most important thing. And you know, we want to get the outcome rather than focus on the procedure. So, convener first of all, and then Mr. McCormack, and then Christian Robertson. Convener.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just wondering if either Angus or the Chief Executive can shed some light on whether it's possible for this funding to be tied into the Eilean Steel projects as well, you know, in terms of taking them forward as quickly as is possible, but also making sure that the Eilean Steel probably goes further than many people are envisaging it's going to be over the next few years. So I think pulling together these funds, if it's possible to do that, might be the best possible solution where people are other that, like the European funding, is part funding a projects that are already in our scope, as it were.
Angus, did you want to come back? I mean, that makes common sense, absolutely. If we can scale up something by doing that, then we should do it. Angus?
Yes. Well, we're actually meeting with the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy next week, and we can raise any questions that members have. But on the match funding aspect, is part of the criteria, so it adds value, although UK government doesn't actually say that you require match funding, but if you have match funding, it is going to add value to the bid. Now, whether Eilean Steel monies can be used to match fund, particularly the capital fund, I'm not entirely sure about that, but it is something that we could maybe bring up with the department at our meeting next week.
Okay,
thanks, Chair. We'll certainly explore that. I imagine it certainly wouldn't be allowed to replicate, but enhance or complement, I imagine so. So we will pursue that as a specific point.
Thank you. Mr. McCormack?
Thank you very much, Leader. Obviously, the funding is very welcome, but it seems terribly rushed, and I mean, it's a big challenge for officers of the council to bring something together in such a short time scale, and in particular the elements of it which may well involve some form of consultation with community. To what extent, could I say, does the council have projects available at the moment which could fit into the categories that are mentioned here, and to what extent will communities be able to bring forward projects? In many cases, well, I'm well aware of the fact that communities do have ideas for projects that they would love to have carried out, but they've been struggling to find funding to do them. And you're right, that there are possibilities for match funding, which this would be extremely helpful if this could be the other part of the project. If we had the match funding and this was the other part that would fix it down. The thing at the back of my mind is just coordinating all of that. How on earth are we going to do that? So do we have a basis on which to start, is what I'm asking, and do we have a way of obtaining further information from communities to help them to take their projects forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bell?
Yes, thanks, Chair. On the general point, I mean, inevitably you lapse into the old bus joke with this. We've been very patiently waiting the success of the structural funds, and then three come along at once. But on the capital front, we certainly have plenty. On the LUF, on the Levelling Up Fund, we certainly have plenty projects from the capital programme list, if nothing else, that we would look to, and which would be, I'm sure, supported by communities. On the Community Renewal Fund, we might think about affordable housing, crofter housing, the procurement issues that have been mentioned earlier, greater use of apprenticeship. So we're building, I suppose, we would be building on what has been funded from European structural funding, and what we would have liked to have been funded from European structural funding through infrastructure. And that is one advantage of the split, I suppose, between the Community Renewal Fund, which is revenue, and the Levelling Up Fund, which is more capital. But Mr. Murray's the expert, and he will be able to advise further.
Okay. Could I ask, Leader? We have in the past established a number of posts through the ESF fund. Is that covered by this new idea in some way? We have posts, for example, that are supporting people who have difficulties in different parts of the Comhairle. Is this going to supplement that in some way? Because these posts are they're time limited.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Murray, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just to answer Angus's comments. The Community Renewal Fund, the bids to that fund, or to the first round of it anyway, in a sense, are going to be limited to projects or bids that can actually spend the money by March 22, which in itself is incredibly challenging as well. But it is revenue, and yes, posts can be assisted in terms of, for example, LEADER, which is coming to a close unless there's an extension to that particular programme beyond mid-2021. But, LEADER staff, for example, a bid to retain LEADER staff, albeit for one further year, would be an eligible bid. And thereafter, in terms of our employability team, which is currently or partly funded by ESF, and also LEADER going forward, we could submit bids to the Shared Prosperity Fund. But yes, a revenue fund primarily, and the establishment of posts would be eligible, is my understanding. Thanks.
I assume, Mr. Murray, that one thing we'll be doing is we'll be mapping across the posts or the projects that have come under LEADER or different funds, and mapping them across to the new funds and seeing where we can match up and continue support for things that have previously worked for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, to some extent, it's the approach is a bit more flexible than European funding was. So there's less constraints in many ways. And in theory, anyway, the process should be a little more streamlined and less bureaucratic and wider in terms of parameters. We certainly hope so. But we'll be raising some of these issues, as I said, next week.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Euston Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a concern had been raised with me reference the Levelling Up Fund that it might be prioritised by the Comhairle towards Island Deal project, and the same was said about the National Lottery Heritage Fund. I think that was quite worrying for those who raised it with me in terms of good projects that might not have made it to the Islands Deal table.
Thank you, Euston. I haven't heard that particular sort of priority being expressed at all. I don't think that the fact that the Islands Deal money is there, I don't think that any new bids have to coincide with that. And I think if there are projects that merit that are outside of the Islands Deal, then they'll get support as well. As far as I understand it, I haven't heard anything different. Mr. Bell?
No, I mean we will look at all projects against the criteria, and we will pitch our bid to ensure that we secure the maximum funding possible within the criteria. I think has to be the standard, whatever the source of the project is.
Yeah. Councillor Carl McLean.
Yes, Chair. Would you say this is a good news story? In view of the doom and gloomsters after Brexit, we all thought there would be no funding whatsoever, but it would seem to replace quite a substantial amount of, if not all, of European funding, and gives, what Angus says, more flexibility than European funding. So would you say it's a good news story?
I would say that Angus can maybe comment, he's closer to it, Mr. Bird, in terms of the operations of it. But the issue is that we've been trying to get information on the Shared Prosperity Fund for 2 or 3 years now. So we welcome the fact that there is funding coming out. Inevitably, when funding comes out, it doesn't suit us entirely because the criteria isn't set by us. But yes, it's good to have availability. I know there are pressures that Angus has suggested about short term and putting things together, but we should always be in a place where we have got projects and ideas and plans that are on the shelf and ready to go or ready to apply to this. So yeah, absolutely. Any additional funding that's made available to us is good news. And as you've just properly mentioned, if it's less bureaucratic, less paperwork and more flexibility, that's to be welcomed. Absolutely. Mr. Bird, do you want to add anything to that?
Very briefly, I mean, I think wait and see. I mean, the Community Renewal Fund, remember, is a pilot, which is for 1 year. The Levelling Up Fund is a 4-year project, and it depends on how the criteria are applied. And I suppose it's good to see new funding coming along. I hope that future processes are more collaborative in the sense that we then stand a better chance of having Ireland's needs built into them, which the EU is good at. But yes, I mean, if there is less process around it, that would be very welcome indeed. So I think a cautious welcome and wait and see. And of course, we have to remember the Shared Prosperity Fund is expected to be launched next year, and we're to be given detail, we're told, later this year through the UK-wide investment framework. So there should be more to come, but I do hope it's a collaborative process as well.
Thank you very much for that and for your contributions. So there's recommendations for approval of paragraph 3.1. Happy to. Thank you very much. Item 18 is just before us because there's some spend on cleansing vehicles. It's about the waste management services and agreed to the planned life cycle replacement of cleansing vehicles. The anticipated rollout of 3 weekly waste and recycling collection services has been significantly delayed by COVID. However, with the rollout of a comprehensive vaccination programme, it's now expected there will be an opportunity to start the service change in April. Next month. The revised curbside waste and recycling collection trials have been operated in the Barras area since January 2020, and the trial has provided evidence that the move to 3 weekly collections of non-recyclable waste is achievable and can allow for the development of a more efficient service. So that has been discussed at the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and the recommendations were agreed there, and it's in front of us to agree really the recommendations around the spend and the cleansing vehicles. Are members happy to agree that?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 19, Air Traffic Management Strategy and the ICIA, the Islands Communities Impact Assessment. The purpose of this report is to update us on the findings of the retrospective Islands Community Impact Assessment commissioned by Eilean and undertaken by reference economic consultants. This report is concerned only with the impacts on families, communities and the wider local economies on Lewis and Eust, rather than the merits of a complex technical solution unilaterally pursued by Eilean with great enthusiasm and Transport Scotland, and about which there is much current debate, as you know, around whether it's cost effective or worthwhile. Key findings for Eust and Lewis respectively are at paragraphs 9.1 to 9.14 and paragraphs 10.1 to 10.9, and the Chief Executive will now provide us with an update on the legal issues. He'll provide us with an update on the legal issues at the end of the meeting. Yes. Do you want to just give a summary of what's involved in the feedback from the ICIA?
I won't go through it in detail, Chair, unless you wish, because we covered it in some detail at Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. But it was a competent Islands impact assessment, I think, and it raised many honest issues. But of course, the problem with it is the parameters which were put on the assessment before it began by Eilean, and those are set out very clearly. It is only about mitigation. It is only about the best possible implementation, I suppose. But I thought that the findings for Benbecula in particular, are very stark. There is, of course, the separate issue with Benbecula, which is the proposed downgrading of the airport, which is not really addressed here. But it shows how many jobs are affected. That's the information is all there. It is what we have been saying for some time, and it indicates that there was limited, to say the least, consultation with affected communities and organisations before these proposals were taken from the in principle stage to implementation. But the key line for me is in 13.3, and I'll read it. I mean, the report says it is not certain, i.e. it is unlikely, that Eilean's proposed mitigations could fully address the potential impacts on local employment and potential loss of population. The consultant linked this kind of decision and this kind of approach to loss of population, and in that the consultant is absolutely right. The mitigation of that, and I think this speaks volumes, is that Eilean should commission a report, says the consultant, which would identify ways in which its operations can create more economic activity. In other words, balance it up, because the effect is so negative. This is a matter, I think, which the Comhairle has given very clear instruction to officers to pursue at all levels, and we are doing that, I think, as effectively as we can. We're doing it quite effectively through our press releases, through our detailed submissions to the Public Petitions Committee, and that issue is far from dead. That petition is very live. There's a subsequent petition in just for information about the composition of the board of Eilean, which is ancillary to this, but is relevant to how decisions are taken. The leader, the convener, but particularly the chair of Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, pursues this matter at every available political opportunity, and later on in this meeting, Mr. Langley and I will advise on any legal issues pertaining to this. But the consultant, I think, has done a good job within the limits which he was set, and he has very honestly said that these impacts are serious and significant. We're in a pre-election period just now, so I don't want to say very much about the government side of it. But after the election, there will be someone will hold the transport portfolio and the islands portfolio, no doubt, and we will be making urgent representations to that source as well, because Eilean is a publicly owned company discharging public sector type functions in the Highlands and Islands. So that's the summary. The report doesn't propose any change to the strategy, because I think our strategy is quite right. So I would ask you to, it's almost reapprove these recommendations. We decided this last year, but we thought in the light of the consultant's report, it would be helpful for the committee to be reminded of our current position. And as I've said, we will address the legal issues later in the meeting. Mr. Angus Murray wrote this as the primary author of this report, so I'm sure he would contribute to any further points of detail. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Crichton.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking, would it be, given the political environment at the moment and the need to ramp up more political pressure regarding this issue, could Councillor Robertson, as he has done with CalMac issues and the ferries issues, challenge our parliamentary candidates to come out and step up to the plate in terms of this issue and support our position? In terms of the composition of the board, I think the Eilean board was recently boasting about their gender equality, that they have achieved gender equality in the membership of the board, and that's all very good and well. but there is no equality in terms of our interests being represented at that board. And I think we need to have more dialogue with the government in terms of how these boards, along with CalMac, we have impact assessments in terms of how policy impacts us, but that there has to be some kind of assessment on how we are represented at that level on those boards. I know it's by public appointment, but there must be some way in which we can achieve some equality and representations at that level, so that our interests are represented at that level.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Crichton, and it's something that we continue to pursue, and it's something that we should maybe ramp up with that. I think that's a fair point. I think there's no harm at all in, and I'll leave it to Councillor Robertson to decide, but there's no harm at all in presenting that a request to all candidates to see if we can get a commitment that they will address these issues, both in terms of the Eilean action at present and in terms of representation on boards, not just in Eilean but others. Because increasingly we're seeing decisions taken here, and I know that Councillor Roberts in particular gets so frustrated with this, decisions taken here about services that they're for our benefit, supposedly, but they're not. We don't ever have any input into how they're shaped or taken forward. So I think these are legitimate things, and I'll leave it to Councillor Robertson to maybe develop that. Insofar as the report is concerned, it's just really a recommendation that 3.1 is to continue to give the delegation to allow the Chief Executive, Vice Chairs, as detailed there, to continue to take whatever action needed to be taken to safeguard the social and economic interests of the Western Isles communities in this particular area. Happy to agree that? Thank you. And then we'll just remind you at the end of the meeting, in terms of the legal aspects, the Chief Executive will give us an update in private. Moving on therefore to item 20, which is the duty of candour, and it's a report seeking an approval of draft duty of candour policy statement and procedural guidance. Mr. Langley will give you a summary of what's involved and then answer any questions. Mr. Langley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is seeking approval of the policy statement and procedural guidance for the duty of candour, which was brought in about 3 years ago. This is to promote a culture of openness and transparency in the provision of health, care and social work services. And as I set out in the report, summarised at 2.2, the caller is a provider of care and social work services, would be, when the duty is activated, would be required to carry out a review and to offer to meet the individuals concerned, and crucially, the duty would require the caller to provide an apology in terms set out in the Act. So the reason for the proposal for the draft policy and statement really is, as I've said in 2.4, to raise awareness of the duty amongst staff and of course service users. It helps to ensure that the duty is activated and fulfilled in a properly managed way, particularly in respect of the giving of the apology, which, although the Act states is not intended to have a legal consequence, may well in fact do so. And thirdly, it provides a clear process for the caller's obligation to publish an annual report in respect of the instances in which the duty has been activated. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Any members got any questions? Happy with that outline. Thank you very much. Further recommendations of 3.1. Moving on then to item 21. Item 21 is a report providing an update on accreditation and apprenticeship service developments. The continued investment in and development of employability programs is essential in supporting economic regeneration. To support local communities, the UK and Scottish Government has provided additional funding through Skills Development Scotland, the Young Persons Guarantee and Kickstart. To support the development of the extended range of programmes and to support the charter agreement with SDS, Skills Development Scotland, it's proposed to have an employability hub in the Town Hall with SDS offered co-location in the building. Donna Smith is going to bring us through a presentation and will answer members' questions. This is really outstanding work, very exciting work, And it's probably worth, before Donna starts, worthwhile saying that, you know, we've had, this is coming to the last item in public, and it's probably true to say that we've had a series of reports here which has demonstrated that over the last year, staff have been working very hard, working very well, and with the same degree of enthusiasm in difficult circumstances. We've gone through performance reports on different services. We've gone through reports about waste management, and that's been progressing. We've gone through a very exciting piece of work which has been taken forward on community empowerment. And we've spoken about 2 huge capital programmes that are still on track. And here we come now to something about our young people and employability. So our officers are doing great work, and I want to acknowledge that as we come to a year into COVID. And this again is a good news report, and I'm sure it's interested to hear what Darlena has to say. So over to you, Darlena.
Okay, Roddy, have you got my presentation, or are you okay for me to share it?
No, you pass on, share it. If you, whatever suits you. You're in charge.
That's good. Okay, I think my IT's, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for taking the time to listen to me today. I just want to give you an overview of where the Coal's employability and partnership and apprenticeship programmes have come, what we have achieved to date, and where we really want to go. You know, the Coal has supported the employability and apprenticeship needs of our islands for many years, but over the last 5, this has taken a very different route, which is mainly down to the diverse needs of the authority and our community. The change was initially brought about when the Coal looked at its own workforce development needs, which took place following the first round of government cuts and voluntary redundancy packages. What became really apparent was a level of skills and experience that was walking out the door. So to ensure this didn't happen again, the Coal took a matrix management fluency approach to departmental working. This was led by Catherine McKinnon, head of our HR. We looked at the age profile and skills gap of our organisation. We implemented a really strong apprenticeship programme. We went from offering 4 frameworks, why? Because it's what we always did, to offering 28 frameworks to 58 apprentices, all from SVQ level 2 through to master's level. The diversity of qualifications was really due to our own findings during the recruitment process. We found that all ages and stages were applying for the opportunity, all for numerous reasons, mainly, you know, to move to the island, to return from university, or they didn't want to leave to undertake that university accreditation. They wanted to do it on island. A really good example of this is Marion McLennan, our own Chief Executive Department. Marion had just finished university in Glasgow. All she wanted to do was relocate back to the islands. So she applied for an apprenticeship at SVQ level 2 level. With this information, we started to take a real person-centred approach to recruitment. We looked at our individuals, we supported them onto a pathway which met their own personal goals, while at the same time meeting the skills needs of the Coal, but more importantly, giving people the opportunity to live, earn locally. Marion went on to achieve her master's, gained employment in the organisation development department of the Coal, and has since gone on to a promoted post. The Coal's apprenticeship programme is a real example of best practice for training and retraining people on our islands, providing them with a platform for sustained employment and providing a safe environment in which they can pursue a healthy lifestyle and carve out that work-life balance that works well for us all. This slide is an overview of the diversity of the frameworks we have implemented over the last few years. This is reviewed annually. We work with local businesses to alter and the offer and that meets their current and future skills needs. We undertake this through what we call a personalisation and choice exercise, where we engage with local businesses, we measure what their current and future skills needs are, and we act on the information received. That information is fed through our annual contracts, and all our programmes are amended to meet the needs of the local businesses and communities. We don't expect them to to meet our programme needs meet their needs. This is really evident in the Foundation and Modern Apprenticeship programme. For example, we work with MG Alba, creative digital media, engineering are offered to young people in senior phase of secondary schools for the first time ever. We have distilling apprenticeships in place in Harris Distillery and North US Distillery. Absolutely delighted to say that it's 2 young female apprentices. This last year has been challenging for us all. COVID has had such an impact. Luckily, the Scottish Government has acted early, with additional grant funding been implemented to support the impending levels of youth unemployment. With this additionality, we have developed the Western Isles Employability Pipeline, allowing participants to be referred to the pipeline at a place that meets their individual needs. For example, the No One Left Behind and Young Person Guarantee funding for those who are furthest away from the job market. They're giving vital one-to-one key worker support that helps them move through our programmes to a place that fulfills their individual need. We work with pupils as young as 14 on a shared timetable. For example, through our community benefits clauses, we work closely with McLaughlin and Harvey, who last November supported a pilot programme where we took 8 pupils, a mix of December school leavers and school refusers. They spent time on site gaining experience in all areas of construction. 7 out of the 8 are now on our employability programme and are preparing for an apprenticeship later this year. The 8th is actually based in the office of McLaughlin and Harvey. The apprenticeship family has been our main focus for over 20 years. This has been expanded to meet the needs of our community. We now support people from as young as 15 with no upper age limit. For example, we have the Foundation Apprenticeship, which is offered to our senior phase pupils in school, giving them the opportunity to gain real life work experience with local businesses. With the support of our tutors, they gain the knowledge required for certification that equips them to move to a modern apprenticeship, straight into employment, or onto a graduate apprenticeship, or into further or higher education. The Modern Apprenticeship Programme and the ESF funding have met the Comhairle's workforce development needs for many years, especially in childcare and social care. We're now supporting business in the community with their workforce development needs. This is easy with the most established organisations who have the infrastructures like Harris Distillery, Essence of Harris and BASF. But now we are looking to expand this expertise to our many micro businesses by implementing an infrastructure that meets their individual needs. Progression onto the graduate apprenticeship is relatively new. We are working with this opportunity, giving apprentices a degree and the work experience in very specialist areas. Alistair MacLeod is in our engineering section. Very good example. He left school to carve out a career in the RAF, realised he wanted to come home, took an apprenticeship at SVQ level 2, has progressed through the pipeline, is now in his last year of his degree. But furthermore, Alistair was engaged before he came home. His fiancée was living and working as a teacher in Edinburgh. She relocated back to the island. They got married, built a house and have since started a family. This is a real example of how our programme attracts young families to the island. We're now supporting participants of all ages and all stages. This was really highlighted at government level this week with a report saying that 50% of our children live in poverty. To support this, the government has awarded local authorities funding through the Parent Employability Support Fund and Disabled Employability Support Fund. We will be aligning this fund to key worker support to support families by upskilling and reskilling them to ensure they are equipped and supported to move into employment and raise child poverty. Why are we doing this? Well, accreditation. We're passionate to ensure that our communities and our businesses work towards a highly skilled accredited workforce for everybody. We have participants in the community who have worked in highly skilled jobs for 20, 30 years, but do not have that piece of paper to evidence it. We work with organisations to ensure every single member of staff gets access to accreditation. Equality. We want parity of STEAM and equality of provision for all. It's not just about those that can afford an education or who have the support mechanism to gain one. We want to support everybody. We want to give young people the opportunity to move into high level opportunities straight from school or to be able to return from university. We are not going to encourage people to come home unless the opportunities are there for them. We have and we want and we will work with employers on their skills shortages. We work with them to gauge what they are right now, what they are in 2 years, 5 years and 10 years time. We want them to be able to meet their skills shortages when they need it at the right time and in the right way. Workforce development. We know we have an ageing workforce as well as an ageing population, so we have to ensure these opportunities are there to attract new talents to our islands, and it is key to the future sustainability. But more importantly than that, it is about our young people. I've shown you a case study of Iona MacLeod. Iona came to us for support a number of years ago. She had come through the cared for system. She was a school refuser. She lacked confidence and she really had nowhere else to go. We've worked with her for the last 4 years. She has gained the confidence, she's gained her experience. She's now got her SVQ level 3 and she's employed in our childcare partnership. Iona has recently become a young mum herself and is a real ambassador of what can be achieved with support. But it wasn't that easy, let me tell you. The first day Iona came to us, that she phoned our office at 8:30 in the morning and asked, who's going to come up and iron my shirt? Let me tell you, Iona has come a long way since then. How are we going to do this? There is only one way that we can do this. We can only do this by working with our partners, strengthening our local partnership and when possible working in the same space, taking a system-wide approach to support our communities and taking that no wrong door approach. We have perfected this internally. We work interdepartmental and we have processes in place to support each department. We are in a formal chartership with Skills Development Scotland. Developing the young workforce works endlessly to ensure our young people are informed in their future choices and have that ever important link with our local businesses. We work in partnership with the Department of Work and Pension to ensure that all those that are most at risk are supported into employment. We have 5 key sectors that we have identified: hospitality, construction, social care, tourism and food and drink. All our programmes are designed to prepare our young people for the world of work, further and higher education. A good example of this is the council cafeteria becoming a training kitchen, preparing young people and those who are most at risk and have barriers to employment on a pathway that lead them into employment or progress onto courses available in our local college. Gaelic is at the heart of our programmes. Cultar Canan, our community, our language. With funding from Bord na Gaelic, we have dedicated tutors offering Gaelic tuition to all our participants in a sectoral way that supports their business needs. eSchool. We have learned so much over the last 5 years. We want to be able to support other authorities to do what we have. So we're now working through eSchool, offering our expertise to our colleagues in the Northern Alliance. Currently, the main focus is on supporting them to implement the foundation apprenticeship in the senior phase of secondary schools. How are we going to support this? We want to build on a strong platform that we have already managed to achieve. The implementation of the Employability Hub is key to the success and growth and offer of their communities. We have a desire that when we want to start to recover from COVID, we implement this one-stop shop approach. Currently, we offer shared space to Who Cares Scotland and will go on to office share with Skills Development Scotland and other partners. For example, when we have a PACE situation, those affected will get the support they need under one roof. The offer will be available across all our islands. We have key workers for the very first time in Barra, Uist, Harris and Lewis, and the infrastructure is there to support the most rural areas from Ness through to Barra. Historical Society and the Harris Tweed Association are tenants in the Town Hall building. We plan to work with them on historical and cultural exhibitions that will support our tourism, hospitality and food and drink culture. This opportunity is hugely exciting and one the community and the economy really needs. That is a one-stop whistle tour of where we are and where we want to go, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So thank you very much, Dolena. You went through that very quickly, and that's respect for us guys who are sitting here for 2.5 hours. And thank you very much for that. It's really exciting, really encouraging. Your own enthusiasm spills over, and it's a good news story.
we so often we're talking about keeping our young people and retaining them here and trying to create jobs. It's got to have this type of joined-up partnership thinking, and thank you for your presentation. I've got a number of comments. Can I start with, first of all, Angus McCormack and then Councillor Alistair MacLeod. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you very much, Dalina, for your presentation. I have had the great pleasure and privilege of working with Dalina during the period when I was Chair of Education, and I was tremendously impressed at how she picked up the challenge and worked with us to make it happen in the way that she's just described. She has done exceptionally well, and she deserves all the praise that we can place upon her. The way in which she has arranged for her section to work with all the other different sections that is required, the one very important to me, of course, is ESCO. She's using all of the possible avenues that she can to involve young people in modern apprenticeships. And it is interesting to note just how many of our young people will now determine that they'd rather go through the modern apprenticeship route than go through hires. And that, of course, has an impact on the results that we have in our schools. People go through different channels. It is quite staggering too, just how significant can be the achievements of young people going through the modern apprenticeship route. We need to apply routes that young people can associate themselves with. Young people are so very different, and one of the issues that I always had as a teacher myself was that we were going down tram lines, and if you didn't fit in the tram lines, then you were really in major difficulty. And the modern apprenticeship has just widened out opportunity for young people, and it's been absolutely wonderful to see this happening. And I'd like to thank Dalina and her colleagues for all the work that they've done. And I know it will just go from strength to strength. And I want you to know, Dalina, that when I come back to Lewis, I'm going to visit you in your new office in the town hall. I'm going to sign up for a modern apprenticeship. You said that age was no barrier.
You're very welcome, Angus.
I believe she said ability wasn't a barrier either, so you should be all right there. Councillor Alistair MacLeod.
It was an inspirational presentation, and there are so many positives in your presentation and in the report. I concur with Mr. McCormack in many things he said, but for me, it's great to see an old building like the town hall with such a long history being turned into an exciting hub, which will be so beneficial for so many young people in the years to come. So well done all, more power to your elbow. Come it all.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think Councillor Norman MacDonald, convener, you were next.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Dalina for her presentation. This is actually the second time I've heard Dalina give that presentation, and I have to say that she's improved significantly in that. The last time she presented, she was at 60 mile an hour. I think she's gone over the 70 mile an hour limit with the speed of the presentation today. But the important thing is that this is all about apprenticeships. Young people earning while they're learning is the best way to develop our young workforce into not so young workforce, and possibly even Angus McCormack might get an opening in terms of that. But I think it is really important that we support the work that's going on with apprenticeships. And the only downside of the presentation is that the aforementioned Marion McLennan fell off her chair when she heard her name being mentioned, and I'm sure she's going to have words with Dalina in the not too distant future.
Thank you very much for that, convener. Councillor Nicholson, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Dalina. A fantastic presentation and way forward for helping our young people, not only on the island, but those that are off the island to come back here. And the way you're planning the project and engaging and working with partners and community is an excellent way forward and an exciting way forward. And as the convener indicated, earning by learning and encouraging our young people to participate through as such. One point I'd like to kind of bring up in regards to partnership, or even two, Chair. One, to look at maybe a young people's board, the board being of those that have come through the scheme and that, and it would be an advisory board to work along with you to encourage and take the project also to another level by engagement and empowering young people after they've come through the scheme. That's one suggestion. The second one is more a point of information. What's the partnership role in regards to with our college?
So before I bring in any more, Dolina, do you want to just, I mean, in terms of the board, you can take that on board and discuss it within your team. But the latter point from Councillor Nicholson, is there interaction with the college or?
Yes, there is. I mean, all our programmes are a feed through to further and higher education. So we are preparing young people for a route to go to our local college. We have had an initial work. We've had an initial workshop on how we're going to both be involved in each other's planning. So yes, we are partnership working with the college.
Thank you for that. And maybe Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to reaffirm that last point, I think the relationship with the college is definitely improving, and I think the dialogue's happening quite a lot recently, so that's good. The first thing I want to say is fantastic report, but what's even more important isn't just a fantastic report, it's a fantastic work that's happening. I think it's just as important as any other work that we're doing at the council at the moment. It's important, practical, structured way to address, you know, the concerns that we have about our population and demographics. So, you know, I commend what's happening and really support it going forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Carl McLean.
Yes, thanks, Chair. But again, I reiterate what everybody else has said about the positive report, and it's great to see that this is the aim of this as well, is not only to get young people and individuals ready for the workforce, but also for population retention, as we said before. One of the questions I've asked Dolina is that you're engaged in these preparing these individuals for a positive destination in the workforce. That is the key. I see it. And what was startling was what was the statistic there, that the health and social care, in 3 years you had 60 participants. Am I right? Was I right in seeing that number? That's a phenomenal number. And do you think that has then affected the problems that we've always seen in social health and social care, is the fact that they weren't getting enough candidates into these posts? Has that helped in that?
Yeah.
Yes, Colin, it has. But, you know, I'd like to make clear that the 60 numbers is included in the European Social Fund that supports our workforce development. So that is putting existing staff through their qualification as well. But, you know, we've got 15 referrals from Skills Development Scotland interested in social care. That's the highest number I've ever seen in the years I've supported this programme. So the work we've done is certainly giving us that pathway to additionality in the programme.
That's great, thanks.
Thank you, thanks for that. And a fair point from Councillor McLean. We see it translating into helping us with numbers of carers will be good. There are areas where we are pressed in terms of recruitment. So after that terrible grilling that you got there, Dolina, thank you very much for your report, and can you pass on all these favourable comments to your team? And well done to you, and we wish you all the best as you continue to develop this programme. Really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Can we now go into private?
You've got reports outstanding.
We've got one report outstanding.
Yes, Chair, I've noticed that this is of some antiquity.
Thank you.